Former FBI Director James Comey, he pled not guilty today after the Justice Department charged him with 2 counts of lying to Congress.
Those charges came just days after President Trump publicly urged the Attorney General to prosecute Comey, calling him guilty as hell.
Our digital investigative reporter Jordan Fisher was in the courtroom today when Comey was arraigned. And Jordan, again, we know that Comey says he is innocent. So what stood out to you during this hearing today?
Right, so in some ways, a very normal arraignment for such a high-profile defendant, the former director of the FBI. He appeared, he pleaded not guilty. The judge set a January 5th trial date. Now that might sound very fast, especially if you're used to the pace of cases in D.C., but that's why the Eastern District of Virginia is known as the rocket docket. One other interesting thing we saw today is the 2 out-of-district prosecutors that the Justice Department has brought in. They're both from North Carolina. They'll be assisting interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, who also made her first ever appearance in the Eastern District of Virginia today.
Boy, this is really interesting because, and the judge is basically saying, I'm not playing around. Don't do anything that's going to make this go any longer. You need to adhere to what I'm telling you. This is going to go according to what I say it's going to happen. Right. So this is the first time in U.S. history that a former FBI director has faced some criminal charges. And I know Comey's legal team, and Zoe, you mentioned that, they're going to be pushing to try to get this case thrown out, calling this politically motivated prosecution instigated by the president. How strong is that argument legally?
Right, well, the standard there is realistic likelihood of vindictiveness. It's a very high bar. Historically, defendants have struggled to meet it. Here we have some recent precedent, of course. Last week in Tennessee, in the criminal case against Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a federal judge has ordered a hearing on that very same allegation. He pointed in that order to posts by the Justice Department, and here we have a post by the president himself calling for prosecution of a list of his enemies, including Mr. Comey, New York Attorney General Letitia James, California Senator Adam Schiff, saying we need to get on this, directing Attorney General Pam Bondi to appoint Lindsay Halligan, who did ultimately get appointed. And of course, Mr. Comey is indicted 5 days later, 5 days after that post. And so it may well be that Judge Nachmanoff in this case has some similar questions.
All right, so we said before that President Trump, he essentially fired the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia after he apparently refused to bring charges against James Comey. Then we know the president appointed his personal attorney here. We're talking about Halligan. And now we also know that Comey is saying her appointment itself was unlawful. What more can you tell us about that?
Right, so there's a second argument, also possibly a very strong argument, and it all has to do with the circumstances of her appointment. As you said, Eric Siebert, who was the former interim U.S. attorney there in the Eastern District of Virginia, resigned last month under pressure from the administration. President Trump actually said that he fired him, and that was after Siebert declined to bring charges against Mr. Comey and some of these other people. Now, without getting too in the weeds, federal law lays out the process by which these acting and interim U.S. attorneys can be appointed. One of the things is that Mr. Siebert had served for more than 120 days, and what the law says is after that, that role of appointment goes to the judges in the district, and that may well be what Mr. Comey's attorneys argue, that Attorney General Pam Bondi no longer had the ability to appoint a replacement.
We'll see how this goes. Well, we know he appears in court in November, in December, and ultimately in January. This really is supposed to move at rocket docket speed.
Very fast.
All right, Jordan, thank you.